Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep today, going right into the heart of Europe.
Buckle up.
Yeah, trying to get a glimpse of what 2025 might have in store.
Crystal ball kind of thing.
Exactly. And our crystal ball, or, well, more like our roadmap, is this report. Europe 24 to 25. It's got a lot to unpack, and we're going to try and do it all. Politics, the economy, migration, even touch on some security stuff. And, we can't ignore the tech that's shaping everything these days.
A lot of moving pieces.
For sure. So let's start by setting the stage, politically speaking. I mean, those European Parliament elections from earlier this year, the report's saying, some pretty significant shifts.
Oh, yeah, big time. You saw right-wing groups gaining ground, right? Making it, well, trickier, let's say, to form those nice, neat majorities in the center.
Tricky. So basically, Europe's parliament's looking a little less unified. What's that mean for actually getting things done in 2025? Laws, policies, that kind of thing.
Well, think of it this way. Passing laws becomes a whole lot more like, I don't know, a giant game of Tetris, right? You got all these different pieces. They don't necessarily fit neatly together. And everyone's trying to make their own moves.
And while they're playing Tetris, the European Commission's over there with their big to-do list. This report lays out their priorities for the next few years. Defense, security, prosperity, democracy, and fairness. It's a tall order.
Definitely, especially when you consider the other pressures, right? Like the cost of living just keeps climbing. Housing, forget about it. And then there's the whole migration issue, a puzzle in itself.
Oh, okay, so let's shift gears for a second, talk economics.
Yep.
Early 2024 wasn't exactly a banner year, was it?
No, not really. Slowdown hit pretty hard. Credit got tighter, and you know what that means. Investment takes a hit, especially construction.
Yeah, not great for anyone, right?
Yeah.
And this report's even saying the European Central Bank lowered its growth forecasts. I mean, what's driving that?
I think you got to look at the consumers, right? They're being cautious, holding back on spending. And when people don't spend, well, the whole system feels it, just like dominoes.
And then you throw in those possible import tariffs from the U.S. that the report mentioned, and it's like, yikes. Talk about a potential curveball. Could be rough, right?
Potentially, yeah. We start talking trade wars. Inflation goes even crazier than it already is. Unemployment spikes. Not exactly a recipe for economic stability.
And as if that wasn't enough, you've got France and Germany, not exactly beacons of political stability themselves these days.
That's another layer of uncertainty, doesn't it? Makes you think twice about that investment property, huh?
For sure. Okay, well, let's move on to something a little less bleak, 'cause let's talk about migration.
All right.
This one's interesting. For the first time in, over 50 years, more people actually left Sweden than moved there. I mean, that's a pretty significant turnaround. What's behind that?
Well, Sweden's definitely shaken things up. They went all in on these new immigration policies, and they're way stricter than what they had before. Think faster language acquisition, proving you can actually support yourself financially, tougher rules around citizenship, and, yeah, even more deportations.
So Sweden's taken a pretty hard line.
Yeah.
I mean, is this the beginning of a trend? Is the rest of Europe going to follow suit?
It's definitely a question worth asking. If other EU countries start adopting similar approaches, well, you can bet that's going to dominate a lot of those migration policy discussions come 2025.
It's a ripple effect.
Exactly.
And speaking of seismic shifts, you can't ignore Sweden joining NATO. After more than 200 years of neutrality, that's a massive decision. It's got to be tied to those rising security concerns everyone's talking about, right?
Absolutely. It's a sign of the times, for sure. The whole geopolitical landscape is shifting, and European nations are realizing they might need to rethink their whole defense strategy. Kind of like when those undersea data cables got cut in the Baltic Sea. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was freaky. Still no idea who did that, right? What was the point even?
It's still a bit of a mystery, but it was definitely a wake-up call. Showed just how vulnerable even critical infrastructure can be. A lot of folks are now calling for, beefed up security, more international cooperation, all that.
Yeah, can't just bury your head in the sand anymore. Okay, last but not least, let's talk tech. Can't have a future-focused conversation without it.
Right?
The EU made a pretty bold move this year, passing that Artificial Intelligence Act. It's the first law of its kind anywhere in the world, right? It's all about regulating AI. The providers, the users, trying to get ahead of any potential harm.
Yeah, it's definitely a big deal. Think of it like setting some ground rules, trying to keep things from getting out of hand.
But how do you even enforce something like that? Such a new frontier.
That's the million-dollar question, right? Figuring out which AI applications are actually risky, setting standards, making sure everyone's playing by the rules, it's going to be a challenge.
Big challenge.
Absolutely, but here's the thing. This law could change how businesses everywhere operate. Could even set the standard for how AI is regulated globally. That's the kind of impact we're talking about.
It's kind of mind-blowing. So just to recap, we've got potential political gridlock, economic uncertainty, these changing migration patterns, security concerns on the rise, and now the dawn of AI regulation. Europe's in for a wild ride in 2025.
And the thing is, all of this is interconnected, right? Political shifts influence the economy impacts migration, migration feeds into the security landscape, and now you add AI into the mix, well, things get really interesting.
So where does that leave Europe? Will they be leading the charge, shaping a new world order, or are they going to be scrambling just to keep up?
That's the big question, isn't it? What role will Europe play in all of this? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. 2025 is going to be a pivotal year for Europe, for all of us, really.
It makes you think.
It does.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up here. But hey, keep those brains buzzing, folks. Lots to ponder as we head into the new year. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
See ya.